Diablo 4 interview about what open world means for Diablo 4. Now, this is a question that a lot of people have, because Diablo 4 does seem like it's taking on some of the Diablo Immortal style, where like you're out in the town, you're out in the world, and you see other players. I think this is a great idea. I think Lost Ark does it, and it's great. I think Diablo Immortal does it, and it's great. It's actually super good. There are a lot of bad things about Diablo Immortal, but there are a few good things. And I think that the open world interaction and seeing people in Old Tristram and stuff like that, that is awesome. So I hope that they make open world Diablo 4 really mean something. However, Diablo 4 is an ARPG. Every single thing in Diablo 4 should be soloable. But you should also be able to do it in a group if you want to. It should be designed more like PoE in terms of like the requirements of cooperation, rather than being designed like Diablo Immortal, where you need a raid in order to do certain bosses. That's what I think, going into this.
We've done a lot of work on our world map, right? Like we really had to define how the world map works for the first time with Diablo 4, because it is an open world with all of these activities.
I don't think it's the whole thing either.
It needs to effectively show you all of these cool things you can do without turning into a task list of like, well, I guess I gotta do this. There are 30 flags, I guess I gotta do all 30 of these flags here. So really finding that.
I think what they should do is they should create bonuses and advantages. I really thought that the Lost Ark Adventurer's Journal, how many of you guys agree with this? I like doing the Lost Ark Adventurer's Journal and collecting all of the seeds, getting all of the different, scenery points, and collecting all of the little quests and all that, except Rapport. Rapport was fucking terrible, and so was, I think there was one other element of it that was fucking terrible. But other than that, I thought it was very good completionism content. I enjoyed it. Yeah, Rapport is dog
and also
shit.
making sure that we're...
And like there's a few, I'm not, guys, I'm saying in general, I'm not talking about farming the fucking bananas in Punica, or farming that meat food that you get in Yorn. Those were horrible. Absolutely not fun, super grindy, sucked dick. But to be fair, you didn't need to do them. That was only for like max level completionism. So I liked being able to have those little goals that I could work towards, and I 100%ed every zone. I'm almost done with South Vern, too.
Communicating important things about the world, like, well, there's a mountain range that runs between these two areas. It's really important that the player knows that, so they're not, like, running along the coast, like, how do I get down here,
That makes sense.
And that needs to come through on the map. So we've done a lot of iteration on how the map can show all the exciting things that you can do, making sure that the map isn't just turning into a checklist, and also the visual design of the map in terms of like being consistent with the overall art design of the world, and having that kind of aspect of like an old map that it feels like a part of the world's fantasy.
Yeah, I think having the old map and make it seem like it's an old Dungeons and Dragons map from like the early 80s. That's certainly an aesthetic, right? You go for the traditional, fucking simple fantasy. I like it.
But still is accurate and useful, the way that you would expect maps to be in the modern day.
Of course.
It even has a GPS system.
Yes.
I guess that's the next level.
They made a new Jumanji?
The next level of the game.
We're in a game?
Yes, Grandpa Eddie, we are in a game.
You can't be serious.
When did they make a new Jumanji?
The big thing I think is worth clarifying is around the story is that, one of the concerns about sort of putting open world in a big neon sign and flashing that sign is that people have that notion of the Breath of the Wild kind of, it's completely organic and I can go anywhere and do anything and eventually I can figure it out for that's not really our story, right? Our story allows...
They're like, all right, guys, listen, if you're expecting this, settle down. It's not going to be like that. Just calm down, guys. It's not going to be like this. I feel like it's going to be much more like Lost Ark or Diablo Immortal. And for an isometric game like Diablo 4, that's not a bad thing. This is not a bad thing that it's like these other games, because this is just the current standard for games like this. Of course, it's going to be sectioned off, and even the camera angle itself adds a number of limitations just by itself.
For non-linearity, but there is a story. We wanted to have a beginning, middle, and end. We wanted to start at a certain place. We want it to end at a certain place. And so it's more of a branching story, and you can choose kind of what order you want to play the branches. And so there's a pretty quick early decision on, once you get past the prologue, of I can actually want to go start Act 3 first, and I want to play all the Act 3 story before then I go play Act 1, and then I go play Act 2. And so if I replay the story, I can go and do now Act 2 first versus Act 3 versus...
I feel like every single Blizzard game they do, they go back and forth on this idea. You either have to go through all the zones in one direction, or you have to go through, you can go through any zone however you want. It's like they had it in WoD, you went through all of them. In Legion, you went through them in one way. In BFA, it was a little bit of both, but basically you could go do whatever you want. In Shadowlands, you had to go through them one way. Now in Diablo 4, you can do this. It's just fucking funny how they just keep changing it over and over and over.
Act 1. So there's sort of branches and come back versus this like just it's all over the place. And
this is fine. It's not a bad thing.
I think it's worth clarifying that's kind of when we talk about sort of the freedom of choice around the story. It's really those sorts of things. You can actually not pursue the story for a while, and that's the nice thing about the open world is like there's a lot of side quests. There's a lot of things in the world that you can go and do that aren't on the campaign sort of golden path. And the fact
I really hope that, especially at the beginning of the game, they make the campaign the best way to level up. I really hope that we don't have a situation where the best way to level up in Diablo 4 is endlessly killing some NPC that respawns really fast. Please do not let this happen.
And the fact is just that the golden path is a branching path that you can decide when you want to do those branches and in what order. The thing that we really clued in on was like this notion, sort of, when we were trying to figure out how best to talk about it, there's like every inch is built for combat was kind of a phrase that came to mind, which is like, that was really how it was designed. We didn't design an open world where it was like, oh, we expect a lot of travel here and we need you to do a lot of downtime here, go play poker over here and go fishing over here. Like, it was really about, we wanted to have that basically anywhere in the open world, you could stop, a monster could attack you and you could fight there, right? And so having...
That sounds like a pain in the dick. That you can't go AFK anywhere in the world? Like you gotta go take a piss, you come back, you're dead? Yeah, I'm worried about that.
When you're working at a density that allows for that, that's a different type of open world. That at any moment in any place you could have a fight. And so that kind of changed how we thought about the design and how you move between the zones and how all that stuff plays out. So that's really it's kind of calibrated for action in terms of the open world.
Yeah, in fact, at one point it was too dense.
Yeah, I bet.
And so we dialed it back a little bit. You know, we want to...
I do hope that whatever the map function is in this game, I'm sure that rifts are not completely going away. Whatever in Diablo 4 functions as maps has massive fucking meat grinders. Like, I'm talking Lost Ark, Chaos Dungeon, there's 100 mobs coming at you, and you've got to fight them all off. And you know what? Sometimes you'll fucking die. I really hope that happens.
We didn't want
I would love that.
To have an experience where you were sort of riding through miles of empty terrain to get to cool stuff. We wanted to have all of the world have exciting and interesting things to do. So if you go into, if you decide to do Act 3 first, you know, maybe you're playing through the campaign a second time, and this time you wanted to do Act 3 the first, you're going to have different experiences. It's going to be a little bit more challenging.
Okay.
And you're going to be playing.
You know what this kind of reminds me of a little bit? It reminds me a bit of Demon's Souls, where like you would play through the different altars or whatever, the teleportation stones, and then you could do them in any order. There was kind of like a expected order that you would do them in, but other than that, you could choose where you're going to go. This is fine.
playing through in a different area of the world and seeing strongholds, and seeing all of the open world features there. And as you're going through it, there's lots of stuff to do, whether you're mounted or you're riding or you're navigating through on foot. But when we actually had so much stuff that getting through it on a mount was challenging, and so we had to say, like, okay, let's make sure that the roads actually are connect to good places and are a good way to travel through this area, so that you can get through.
Well, you don't want to annoy people. Like, if people are traveling on the road on their mount, they're not looking for combat. They just want to get over to the other place. That's all. They want to go from point A to point B. And to the extent that you make that annoying, the game does not feel more open world. It does not feel more dangerous. It's just annoying. That's all.
Get to places that you're going expediently. And also have the opportunity to go off the path and see interesting things.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I really like with the renowned system, that ability to sort of like plays into each zone where you can go and you're going exploring and looking for hidden caches, and you're going and completing certain side quests, and you're looking for certain strongholds to sort of say, okay, this zone's done, and I get benefits of that, of okay, I'm going to get skill points that I can actually on my alt I can automatically start with 6 skill points, and so I've sort of accelerated.
Okay, so they might be doing kind of like the Lost Ark Adventurer's Journal. I'm not sure yet, but that's kind of the way it sounds.
My alt progression, but I think that's part of the open world we wanted was, again, as we think about choice, whether it be choice of class. And
I like high-level meta progression like Lost Ark. I don't like doing it twice. If you told me that I had to go get all my skill point potions again for another character, I would never log on that game again. Straight up. But I enjoyed doing it the first time. It was really fun. The second time, fuck that.
Choice of how you look, and choice of your skills, and choice of your paragon, like that ability to, whether you turn left, turn right, turn around, that's all up to you. And so you can kind of go and explore the world and go after those. What's most important? Do I want to go and do dungeons? Am I going to do world events? Am I going to go do local events? Am I taking out a world boss? Am I, and so that sort of notion of having the freedom of choice, but still having that sort of directionality is really.
I hope that they understand that whenever you have an unbalance, an imbalance in rewards, there is no freedom of choice. So, for example, if the world events give way more experience, reputation, and are relatively easy to do on the same level as the local events, and a player has to decide between doing one or the other, or it is just more efficient to simply do world events and then wait for the next world event, that is all people will do. So these types of ideas are great ideas, but the moment where they fall apart is whenever they actually turn into being like weighted reward systems. Because whenever the weighted reward systems are imbalanced, you actually remove that choice more than you ever could with an actual design. Because the players are choosing to just not do this because it's not efficient for them. Many people that play ARPGs, any semi-hardcore and up player, is playing for like maximizing their character to a large extent, and they will feel like they have to play a certain way if you make that way more efficient.
I think is really important, and that's something
yeah, just 1 second. Somebody made a very good example of this, like 10 different helmets, but one is clearly best in slot. Yes, that's right. Yeah, there are 10 different helmets, but one of them is just the best helmet, and that's it. Why would anybody farm the other 9?
When working on Gears 5, we added a sort of bowls, like large bowls that were pseudo open world in Gears 5, and we met with a bunch of open world designers, people who worked on Red Dead, people who worked on Tomb Raider, and they always said like it's a little bit of an illusion, is that people want to have, they say they want open world and free choice, but they also want to be told where to go. And so that was when they talked about in Tomb Raider, is that when there's like a road and the road would end.
I feel like it depends on how much you tell people where to go. So, like, for example, Are we talking the fucking menu where there's 17 different indicators that there are 10 different events that are near you? Or are we talking about the guy says, oh, okay, I think that you have to go up to that castle and kill the big guy, and then you're going to be the Elden Lord. That's it? Because they're both telling you where to go, but the amount of hand-holding here is vastly different. I would very much prefer the Elden Ring, hey, you gotta kill Diablo. He's over there. Okay. Yep, he's over there whenever you're ready. And you figure out everything else you want to do.
But if you went straight, you would go to where they want you to, but the world is open to you. But you knew if you went straight, that would be the path. And so that's kind of, in some ways, our story is that guidepost. Like, you know where the campaign wants you to go, and where the campaign, you always have a place to come home. Like, you always know, oh, if I go off going crazy for a while and I go and do strongholds and events and open world exploration and at the end of the day you go like, okay, I've been doing this for a while, what am I, okay, quest, okay, that's where I have to go in the campaign, and I can get back on the rail and know what, get back on the storyline and go back to doing that. And so to me, it's a great mixture of that notion of like playing through a story, but also having the ability to go wherever you want, whenever you want.
Okay. Again, the only thing that I want them to make sure does not happen is that boring mob grinding is not the meta to level up in this game. In my opinion, I actually enjoyed the campaign in Diablo 3. I even enjoy the campaign in Path of Exile. Please make it to where the min-max thing is to play through and enjoy the campaign. Yeah, I really hope they do that. It's just my taste. I like getting handheld in big games because I feel like I get lost easily, which stresses me out. Yeah, it's really hard to balance that because I think that you're not the only person that feels that way. I really don't think you are. So I'm not saying you're wrong about that at all. I just don't know necessarily like where to draw the line, because I feel like there's too much and not enough. So it just depends on what is soy gamer. I think it's not really soy. It's people that don't really have a lot of time on their hands. So they either have to look something up for a game, and a lot of people view looking something up for a game the equivalent of, you know, you have no idea what to do. You finally, you know, you're on the verge of tears because you can't beat the boss, and you finally ask your mom to take you to GameStop and buy you the Brady Games strategy guide because you just can't get any farther on the water temple. Right? Like, you feel like an absolute fucking pussy. You don't want to have to look this up. You just want to figure it out on your own, and you can't do it. A lot of people do not want to engage in third-party media to play a video game, and I don't necessarily blame them. So it's like, where do you draw the line in the middle there? Because a lot of Elden Ring players, I feel like Elden Ring is very much not a beginner game. It's not like, you know, baby's first video game. This is something that it's a complex game. There's a lot of nuances in it that are, you know, established throughout multiple other games. Yes, you can come in as a brand new video game player and do okay, but you're going to have to work a lot harder than if you played another game that's more geared towards entry-level players. So, yeah, hand-holding super hard in open world, in my opinion, defeats the purpose of having an open world. Well, every game has hand-holding. Like, you know how, like, for example, with the little shrines in Elden Ring where there's the arrow, that's hand-holding, okay? But it's not bad, is it? No, it's not. It's great. So it's not about hand-holding as an idea. It's about the way that it is done. Like, that's the way I see it. That's what I think. So, yeah, I really hope that they're able to nail Diablo 4. To be honest, I feel like there have been a few dumb things that these guys have said about Diablo Immortal, or sorry, about Diablo 4. But overall, I think that it seems like they've got their head in the right place. I'm very excited for Diablo 4. I have heard 95% positive information about the game, and I really hope that it's good. Abso-fucking-lutely, man. Absolutely. The invisible hand of the experience on Rails experience. Exactly. Yeah. You want people to feel like they are. You want people to feel like they're not having their hand held, but you're holding their hand. And that's what's so fucking funny about the Elden Ring thing, is that everybody was saying like, oh, well, you know, Elden Ring doesn't hold your hand. I don't want them to hold my hand, but it does. So it's like you want to be the invisible guide. You don't want them to see that you are you want to be the puppet, but you don't want to see the strings.